Hello and welcome to EUD TV. I am David Hay, Communication and Media Manager at EUD. In this episode, we reflect on the long journey of the European Accessibility Act. From proposal to adoption and ultimately implementation. The EAA was a historic EU law aiming to ensure accessibility in areas like banking, telecoms, transport, and digital products. EUD had been involved from the start. As early as 2012, we worked closely with Deaf MEP Ádám Kósa to ensure that accessibility, including sign language access, would be fully embedded in this legislation. In 2012, the EAA was introduced in the European Parliament. Ádám Kósa was among its earliest champions. Let's have a look. What are your goals and priorities in this new year regarding deaf citizens? It is really important to look at deaf citizens as equal to others, and not as second-class citizens because of their disability or deafness. Recently, the European Parliament approved the report for this year, where we asked for more projects and programs for people with disabilities. This was approved, so the European Parliament truly supports us. But does this mean that our lives will change? No, that is mainly PR. Therefore, accessibility remains really important. 2 years ago, the European Commission proposed the Disability Strategy 2010-2020, in which they promised to create a new law named the European Accessibility Act. They promised it would be ready this year, in 2012. Unfortunately, it got postponed to 2013, so we are really looking forward to this important work. Accessibility for all people, with or without disabilities. I have insisted many times that the proposed law should be finished this year, in 2012. Then it got postponed and I thought to myself, well, that's not a big issue, because I want this law to be the best it can be, and not to be rushed. I want this law to be well thought out and to include sign languages, so I am hopeful that they will focus on this in the next year. Within that process, EUD has also been engaged with policymakers to secure provisions on audiovisual, telecom, and digital accessibility, especially with the rights of deaf sign language users in mind. By 2017, the advocacy work was gaining momentum. EUD joined demonstrations in Brussels, demanding a strong, enforceable EAA. Let's have a look. A heartfelt thank you for your support. Right now, at the European level, regarding accessibility measures, the European Parliament wants to abolish some of these measures to spend less money. By doing this, they are building walls of inaccessibility for us. No more. We are here today to stand against that, to say no, a firm no to these discarded measures. No more. A big thank you to all of you. Thank you all for coming. Your support is crucial. I believe that the European Accessibility Act is really important. Right now, we are protesting against the removal of measures from the EAA. We saw a big no from all the people here. Wow. We hope that the European Parliament is shocked by our action and that they will include the demands of deaf people and people with disabilities for a stronger and more accessible Europe. The Commission will discuss about this issue later. We also published interviews of different topics, making the case for equal access to digital and audiovisual services in national sign languages.
Agree on many things when it comes to improving the life of disabled people, but the real effort, the real challenge here is to the negotiation with the member states, because it's in the member states that we have to make concrete improvements. It's the member states that will have to implement these new rulings, and well, as a lawmaker, I can assure you that one of the biggest challenges for us as lawmakers in this house is to actually get these laws implemented in the member states. Many member states are not very willing, they're not very good at it, and this is a key issue in many pieces of legislation. So coming back to the Accessibility Act, this will be the biggest issue, not to come up with many good rules and proposals within this house, no, to actually get the member states to follow up and to implement. That will be the key issue in the future, and that's why it's difficult for me standing here to make any guarantees that this will happen, but I can assure you that in negotiations, in the trilogues, I will do whatever I can as rapporteur to say to the member states, please, let's be concrete, let's do it, and find a compromise that actually is doable. That's my main concern.
In May 2019, during EUD's General Assembly in Bucharest, in Romania, a workshop briefed all the delegates on key EU laws, as the EAA, the AVMSD, and the EECC. The AVMSD, the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, and the EECC, European Electronic Communications Code. We explained these laws to the delegates. Let's have a look at the video. This workshop helped the national deaf associations to prepare for the transposition of this European law onto the national level. To truly understand the law in the correct way so that the deaf associations can advocate for a better implementation of this law at home. In 2020, EUD launched the EAA Toolkit for Transposition. How can you transpose this European law onto the national level? This practical guide helps the deaf organizations to monitor and shape their country's implementation. Let's have a look. The toolkit was widely used by members to engage with authorities and advocate for real enforceable accessibility measures. Good morning. We are here at the European Parliament to interview a very special person. We are discussing the important upcoming European elections. I'm happy to be here and to meet you. Good morning. Good morning. I'm happy to be here to meet with you too. In 2024, Ádám Kósa ended his mandate as a member of the European Parliament. The EAA remained one of his greatest legislative achievements. Let's have a look at the interview. What has been your proudest political achievement so far over the years? I think that was the European Accessibility Act, that legislation. I was in charge of discussing it with the Council. A committee was leading the file called IMCO, meaning Internal Market and Consumer Protection. And there was a supporting committee on employment. I was the rapporteur of that committee. And the rapporteur of the IMCO and myself, we worked together in detailed discussion over a long time, I think about 4 or 5 months. We were discussing with the council back and forth. They blocked it. We made changes back and forth, until it finally had both parties' approval. And that legislation will change the life of people with disabilities. Accessibility, better communication, 112 service. These things must change to have full accessibility for deaf people. EUD recognized the legacy of Ádám Kósa and reaffirmed its commitment to full and inclusive implementation of this law. On July 1st of 2025, EUD released its implementation report, the EAA Deaf Perspectives Across the EU. The report revealed significant gaps. For example, banking services lacked sign language access. Telecom platforms failed to offer real-time visual communication. Emergency communications often excluded deaf users. EUD's recommendations called for stronger national enforcement, better standards and accessible support services in national sign languages. Within the area of accessibility, there are different legislations. We focus on these three: the EAA, European Accessibility Act. Many of you are familiar with this legislation. The EECC, the European Electronics Communications Code. And the AVMS, the Audiovisual Media Services Directive. As additional information to this report, EUD hosted a focus group on the 7th of May 2025 with several national deaf associations from Belgium, Croatia, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, Romania, Slovakia, and Spain. Let's have a look.
Even when we have our in-house interpreter at our association, the banks refuse us to call through the interpreter. They insist deaf people must call directly. I explained that deaf people cannot call, but they were firm. Deaf people must go in person to the bank and communicate in writing. It takes so much time. Like Alexandre said, we have no trains in our country, but our national bus service uses an app with real-time notifications for delays, cancellations, and more. If the app connection is disrupted, SMS messages are automatically sent to customers. The same applies to airline companies. There are no video relay services in our country. Direct online communication in National Sign Language with their services is not achievable for a small country. Alternatives must be sought. In bank offices, there are pictograms indicating disabilities such as blindness, wheelchair use, or deafness. This suggests that services should be available for us. Yet when we inform staff that we are deaf, they do not know what to do. The stickers mean nothing if there's no real provision behind them.
Participants shared striking experiences and concerns. These testimonies confirmed what our report documented, that full accessibility in national sign languages is far from being achieved and that more action is urgently needed. At the Accessible EU event in July 2025, EUD Director Frankie Picron spoke as a panelist on accessibility in telecom, audiovisual services, and emergency communications. He outlined positive developments, including, for example, Vodafone Ireland offering native RTT real-time text since 2024. Apple's sign time support in multiple national sign languages, and Spain's VRS support through CNCE is visual with Movistar. But he also warned of the gaps. For example, RTT, real-time text, is not usable unless telecoms update their networks. Total conversation is not enforced equally, despite growing video call use. And national standards fail to require sign language in support content. Frankie called for mandatory rollout of native RTT and TC, stricter enforcement of sign language access in support and AVMS, and expansion of 112 accessibility beyond RTT with PSAP training and video access. The European Accessibility Act went into effect last week. Today we are discussing, now that the Act is in place, what is next? There are many panels with different topics. EUD was involved in a panel on how to improve the 112 emergency services. And also discussing about what we think can be done more in this regard. EUD replied that we are working on our EAA report, where we also collecting input from national deaf associations. We also emphasized several times that accessibility in sign languages is important, not only accessibility in written text, and also to not forget that total conversation does not always guarantee a full 100% accessibility for deaf people. They understood our recommendations and will try to work on these issues. Thank you. There are a lot of reasons for illiteracy. For example, lack of education, not feeling comfortable, and so on. We believe if there is access to spoken languages, there needs to be access to sign languages as well. This needs to be equal. text can be a starting point of accessibility. For your information, related to the accessibility of the 112 emergency services, some of you are aware of total conversation, but what does it mean exactly? It is a 3-in-1 solution of accessibility through video, real-time text, and speech. Within the same call, people can switch between these three. This is important because we can use sign language. In an emergency situation, texting is just not the same. For different reasons, for example, shaking hands, stress, people prefer to speak. Same for us, we prefer sign language. This design is made for deaf people, but it can be beneficial to all people. For example, if a hearing person is in a car accident and their jaw is broken, they are unable to speak. Thanks to TC, they can switch to text. It is really helpful also for the operator to see via video that the jaw is broken. They can immediately assess the situation. So these small changes in design can be beneficial to all of us. The EAA was a major step towards equality from 2012 up until now. But it must be matched by enforcement and by political will. EUD continues to work with national deaf associations, EU institutions and civil society to make that happen. You can read the report on our website. Thank you for watching EUD TV. See you in the next episode.